tends to actually dictate to a larger extent your family size than how much money you have, or what kind of a religious group you're from, or what kind of social class you're in. So, in other words, people are imitating, life is imitating art in this sense. So larger casts costing television production companies more money led to smaller television families, which then led to smaller real-life families. So this is where your choice of, and actually the artist's choice of cultural expression leads to change in society. And of course, we now have the internet, and all of these rules apply to that as well. So we're selecting what information we get on the internet. The social media information that we get, especially things like social media, things like Instagram or Facebook and that sort of thing, these are from people that you know. So you're actually supporting and reinforcing existing relationships, and you're filtering information in the same group. So it's actually kind of hard on the internet. As much information as there is out there, it's actually harder to filter in new things with things like social media, because you're actually pre-selecting what your group is going to be. Where do you draw the line between art and some other forms of culture? Well, it's hard to do that, and I wouldn't even try to do that, in fact. So what about things like sports? Is that art? Well, not necessarily. I'm not a sports fan, but I appreciate that it serves some of the same cultural functions as other forms of cultural expression do, like art. And things like the world sport, for instance, is soccer, or what most people would call football. American football is really only watched by Americans to any great extent. So why is it so popular here? Well, this has been studied by anthropologists. Why is America's sport American football? Well, it was for a long time regarded as just, well, it's so violent. But frankly, there's a lot of violence in other sports. If violence is the determining factor, then you would expect something like Australian rules football or hockey to be the premier sport. But anthropologists have actually studied that the correlation between the popularity of American football in the United States and the reasons for that is that its popularity is not in the aggressiveness of it, but is because it symbolizes particular key American values. The way I explain this to people that aren't from America, it's a shame that it's my task to defend American football, not being a sports fan, but it's my task to defend American football to non-Americans. The way I frame it to people that aren't familiar with American football is I say the typical American sports fan, football fan, American football fan, isn't trying to put themselves into the shoes of the fastest runner or the best catcher or the best kicker. When you hear people discussing American football, they are putting themselves into the shoes of the coach. That it's about division of labor. That an American football team is a dynamic group of people that operates sort of like a chessboard, right? But they're dynamic. They're not fixed, static figures that the bishop only moves this way and the queen only moves this way and the pawns only move this way. That each of these individuals have individual virtuosity, but it's the coach and the quarterback on the field who determine where to put people and do the best plays to try and advance the ball forward. And so this is a reflection of certain American values that are teamwork based on things like division of labor, which is a pervasive feature in our contemporary life. And this football American football acts as a miniaturized, simplified version of modern organizations that we find here in America. So it makes complicated things more transparent, and it's something all of us are thinking about all of the time. So we can all be armchair coaches or armchair quarterbacks in this sense. Now, the perception of sports across the world is also culturally determined. So it's not just a one-way street where that sports are being shown at you and you're perceiving it. Our reactions influence sports as well. So, for instance, there are sports stars in every country. Brazil, your book focuses on because Kotak is a Brazil specialist. That's fair enough. But he highlights in particular that Brazilians put emphasis on those performers, those sports performers who succeed, not the ones that fail. In America, we tend to put more emphasis on the performance itself. That in the US, there's less pressure for victory. And part of that is because of the fact for things like, let's say, the Olympics, America has lots of resources, it's got a huge population, and we have great success in getting gold medals in the Olympics. Whereas Brazil doesn't have as much success in global competitions. And so the expectation is to win in Brazil. If you don't win, you have failed and you are a failure as a sports star. Whereas because there's less pressure in America, there's more room for things like striving for your goals, doing your personal best, having a moral victory, or being a comeback, the comeback kid, right? So there's a reason that Rudy is still a cultural trope. The film Rudy, that, you know, lifting the kid on your shoulders that tried hard, right? Tried hard. That's good in America. Whereas in some cultures, it doesn't matter how hard you try, you've got to win. That's the important thing. And so this is the difference of being an athlete and doing athletic things. So going back to some of our terminology that we've used before, the culture of the United States emphasizes achieved status over ascribed status. So you can achieve sports success if you try hard enough. And even trying hard means that you're on the road to that. Whereas Brazilian culture emphasizes the reverse of that, you are ascribed as a victor, which makes you intrinsically better as a result. We also tend to, especially with sports stars, but other types of public figures, we tend to place into these people that we see other elements of our expectations and hopes and cultural attributes. And so you can see people that fall from grace, artists, or public figures, or sports stars that have affairs or scandals. It's deeply impactful to us because we see them as the champions of our culture, not just as a sports star. We imbue in those people, perhaps unfairly, more stock in being a cultural representative and represent more than just success in their field, but a champion of our cultural values in general. Okay, so that's those are some of the basics of art and cultural expressions, and some other things. So I'll catch you next time.